Greetings, friends. Kambria Evans here, the Teaching and Learning EMDR consultant. And y'all, today we are launching into a brand new podcast series here at Zero Disturbance. We're talking all about why EMDR works and why I think EMDR works for every person, really. I mean, EMDR has historically been branded as a trauma therapy. There's tons of research all about how EMDR is a trauma modality. And that's not wrong and that's not bad. I've done EMDR for my past trauma and it's been incredible. It's been life-saving. It's been life-changing. But the conversation shouldn't stop there, right? EMDR is for everyone. And I'm going to convince you in this new series why that's true. So if you're a therapist listening to this, I'm going to give you some different ways of thinking about how to talk to your therapy clients about what EMDR can do for them. Now, if you are a therapist listening to this and you're not trained in EMDR yet, I'm going to talk about that too and why I think you should be, or something that's EMDR informed, like brain spotting, accelerated resolution therapy, something that's brain-based, body and mind connected, okay? Amazing. We are also going to be talking about when EMDR doesn't work and how 90% of the time when EMDR doesn't work, it's often because the therapist is not well trained to know how to help their client get to the next step of EMDR, okay? So we're going to talk about that because oftentimes I will get clients in my office here in California and they'll say, my last therapist, who was an EMDR therapist, told me I couldn't do EMDR because I wasn't regulated enough or because I wasn't sober enough or because blah, 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 okay? So I'm going to flip the responsibility a little bit back to the therapist, how to reframe and rethink what you were told in your basic training, okay? We're going to get some new curriculum around that idea. Beautiful. So I really started this series, the idea for this series, when I was driving around in my car one day and I just thought, if I were to zoom out, if I had a magic wand, I would want every single therapist to have EMDR be the default therapy, right? We go to grad school and we kind of get these like classic default therapies. Like here are the therapies, here are the theoretical frameworks for therapy and counseling that you're going to use with your clients. And when you're a grad student, you'll notice that there's kind of like this old white dude parade that you have to go through of old school theoretical concepts going back to like Freud in the 1890s. And by the way, when I got to learn about Freud from the 1890s, over 100 years later, I got to learn all about how women were diagnosed with hysteria. So if that's part of my grad school curriculum that I just had 15 years ago, I think it's time for an update. Because after Freud, I got to learn about more old white dudes, right? And I'm not saying that their contributions weren't important. All I'm saying is that if I'm going to grad school in my second career as a therapist, and I'm having to learn about, B.F. Skinner, who was like born in the early 1900s because he taught us about how, stimulus and creates response and then reinforcement and Pavlov's dogs. And then I have to learn about, CBT and Beck, who was born in like 1921. And then Albert Ellis, which was kind of cool because it's kind of an action-oriented approach to managing emotions and behavior and cognitive disturbances. But you guys, this was like almost 100 years ago. This was going on, okay? Like there's a social context, there's a cultural context, there's no neuroscience brain information updated in these theoretical concepts. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself now, at the age of 43, having been a therapist for a long time, having paid a lot of money for graduate school, why are these all men? Why are they all like 100 years old? And why didn't I get to learn about like Francine Shapiro, who has passed away, right? And developed EMDR in the 1980s, like the early 80s, which was decades ago. I mean, that's when I was born. So I'm having a call to action, I guess, right now, which is that if I had a magic wand, I would have all graduate schools for any therapist have EMDR be a default curriculum every therapist graduating with a master's degree should be trained in EMDR. This is more important and more relevant and more brain-based than Freud teaching people that women were hysterical as a diagnosis. This is more important than all the diagnoses in the DSM, 75% or 80% of them really, which are just trauma diagnoses. And they're just symptoms that need to be soothed with a therapy like EMDR or brain spotting or accelerated resolution therapy. Okay? So I want to think about that. Also, if you are a graduate school who teaches your students EMDR, please contact me. I will promote the crap out of your school. Thank you for doing that. You're an innovator. Amazing. Okay, so this is the foundation for therapists. So you got to understand that when therapists go outside of graduate school, and in California, you have to get 3,000 hours of practice before you can be licensed, right? Now, you might have EMDR training then, but it's expensive. It costs over $1,000. When you are finishing up grad school, which is very expensive, and you are seeing clients for $5 an hour or $20 an hour or for free in most cases, you don't have $1,000 to do an EMDR training. Like you can barely pay your bills, okay? So the system that creates therapists in the United States needs to be completely redesigned in terms of what curriculum is prioritized that will actually help people get better faster. That's my first point about why EMDR should be the first default therapy people use, okay? EMDR should not be the therapy that you do because you had all this advanced training later, okay? That's backwards as far as I'm concerned. So now that we understand that therapists are set up to not be able to do this for you, because it has to happen later, you can't even get EMDR certified until you're licensed, okay? It's expensive, all these reasons, right? So we can understand that the source of the problem is lack of representation of current neuroscience-based, brain-based modalities in therapy school curriculum. We can see the inaccessibility that therapists face, being told how amazing things like EMDR and brain spotting are, but then seeing the prices while they make little to no money getting their practicum and intern hours, okay? Now, for the few therapists, I think currently Andrea's trained, I think like 13,000 EMDR therapists in the United States and Canada, which sounds like a lot, but y'all, there are millions of people who live in the United States. Millions, like hundreds of millions of people. 13,000 is not enough. And so we always have a wait list. We're always full. We are always busy because there is such a demand. So I wanted to just put that out there as a call to action for graduate schools to help therapists get access to this from the beginning as the default. And if therapists are trained in EMDR as the default, they will understand how to case conceptualize from an AIP model, which is the adaptive information processing framework from the beginning. They don't have to relearn how to case conceptualize things from a talk therapy perspective. They will understand how the mind and body work together. They're not going to have to spend thousands of dollars doing sensory motor training about somatic work or somatic experiencing. It's like they will learn about the body from the beginning. Okay. And if therapists do this, then that means that all therapists will come out of graduate school and their intern years going into being licensed as therapists who just do EMDR or do brain spotting or do accelerated resolution therapy or do flash or 4 blinks. They just do all these things that they know work from the beginning. And their mind will understand how to case conceptualize that from the beginning. And then they will be able to talk to their clients with the latest research and neuroscience frameworks from the beginning. We could have an entirely different mental health landscape in the United States if this was happening. Could you imagine? Could you imagine how profoundly different people would feel walking around? Because all the research is there about trauma therapy, right? People with trauma would be able to access EMDR clinicians because there would be hundreds and thousands of them instead of 13,000. Right? It would be affordable. It would be accessible. People would walk around with resolved trauma. And EMDR works because EMDR is also used for something called performance enhancement. This is not just for CEOs and leaders and athletes and Olympians and people who have to publicly speak and actors, politicians. It's not just for them, right? Because just like EMDR is used to resolve traumatic experiences that leave disturbances in our body, our emotions, and in our minds, EMDR is a powerful, powerful tool for people to basically say, my traumas have been desensitized, and now I'm kind of feeling like I just want to be even more of a badass, right? I don't have all these disturbances creating PTSD symptoms, creating nightmares, creating somatic diagnoses like irritable bowel syndrome, migraines, TMJ, grinding my teeth at night because my body keeps the score and my body's stuck in trauma time, right? Once those are all resolved, you will have a lot of energy, a lot of clarity, and a lot of peace. You will have a quiet body and a calm mind. And from this place, y'all, if we do performance enhancement, watch out. You just become like a magnified version of yourself. You'll make sure that every positive belief, right, there is in your Zero Disturbance Client Resource Library. If you sign up for the mailing list, you'll get this free resource library that has a belief inventory guide. It has all of the negative and positive beliefs that we use in EMDR therapy. Okay, so you can go in and you can do an assessment to kind of see where you are and how EMDR might be able to help you with that congruence between those beliefs. But could you imagine getting all the positive cognitions on that inventory list? Like walking around like, I have choices, I can figure things out, I am safe now, I am good, I deserve to be loved, I am powerful. Could you imagine walking around not just knowing that in your head, but knowing that in your body? Could you imagine going through a divorce with those positive beliefs, protecting you and containing you through just the traumas of life, just the transitions of life? Could you imagine being a parent, right? I will tell you, as a parent of twins who have neurodivergence, EMDR has made me be an effective parent. When life gets hard, when life is a surprise, when life invites you to learn more things that you weren't planning on having to learn, it requires energy. And we need to have our energy ready to respond to life. We don't need to have our energy stuck in past trauma. We don't need to have our energy stuck in trying to figure out the incongruence of like this part thinks I'm a good mom and this part thinks that I'm not. Like EMDR can create congruence for all of those things. Okay. So yes, EMDR is for trauma, and EMDR works for creating congruence between what you know in your mind and what you feel in your body. EMDR can resolve things for many people like IBS, like migraines. If you're a physician listening to this or a nurse practitioner and you have people coming in with trauma symptoms, EMDR can often resolve a lot of those symptoms very, very quickly if you have a skilled therapist who can help you with that and understand the mind-body connection. Okay? Could you imagine parents walking around in the world not feeling super triggered by their kids? What kind of kids would we create? I mean, pretty amazing ones, I think. Could you imagine walking around in the world having gone through grief or life transitions? Let's say your kids go off to college and you're an empty nester. Just the stuff we're supposed to go through, just the milestones of life. All those changes, yeah, sure, they're normal. They happen to most of us. And you know what? They create disturbance. Could we say they're traumatic? I don't know. I guess so, if we wanted to, but they're just hard. And EMDR can help with all of those because EMDR helps with the disorientation we feel when things change. Think about this. Our brain loves to categorize everything. It likes to create these neural networks of how things are supposed to go. What happens in the past informs the present. This is one of the famous things Francine Shapiro used to teach us. The inventor of EMDR taught us this, right? And the past and the present inform the future. Okay? So when life changes, Even if we see it coming, even if we see the divorce coming, even if we see the empty nest situation coming, even if we see the diagnosis, the cancer diagnosis coming, it's still hard. It's still disorienting. We still have grief because our neural networks are trying to reconfigure with what's happening now. And if something is a surprise, we even have more shock and disorientation. And EMDR can act as an accelerator, as a fuel to help us integrate those changes faster. Of course, we still have to feel our feelings, but it's just a matter of how long do we have to feel the hard ones? Let's try to minimize that disturbance time, you guys. And so I think that what is often misunderstood is that when people go into talk therapy instead of EMDR or brain spotting or art, for them to talk about things, talk. It's helpful for putting together a narrative, a concept of self. But does it really accelerate that process? Does it really decrease the disturbances as fast as EMDR? I'm going to look for some research papers. I'm going to talk about this in depth in this series. And it's not knocking talk therapists. God bless talk therapists. I've worked with many, okay? They're amazing. And we have methodology available now. And I know it's expensive, but it's available now to help people get better faster, period. And if you have an EMDR clinician who does intensive work, boop, boop. I mean, that's the most efficient therapy that I know of currently, right? And that's why I do that in my office. So EMDR works, and it works for everyone. Now, there are some people who might have very severe mental disorders like schizophrenia or bipolar, right? I mean, those are very general diagnoses. Now, I am not highly trained in working with those populations, okay? But for most people, EMDR works. And not just for trauma. So I'm so excited to dive into this with you because I want you to imagine with me what life transitions you've been through, you're going to go through. Maybe you have some friends or family or kids who are working through something hard or have something big coming up. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could use EMDR as an accelerator to update learning, to update curriculum, to update sense of self, to update a sense of safety and power and control and choice in the world? I think this could really revolutionize the way the world feels right now. And the world needs to feel differently right now. So I'm on a mission to talk about this until grad schools have EMDR in their curriculum, until EMDR trainings are accessible and affordable for therapists, until EMDR is one of the default therapies that people get when they go to therapy, just like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, just like psychodynamic from Freud over 100 years ago. EMDR is the default people get when they walk into a therapy office. I'm going to keep talking about this until everyone understands that EMDR works for almost everybody. So I hope you will join me in this mission, and I hope you will tune in for our next episode where we dive into why I believe every single parent should have EMDR. In the meantime, y'all take care of yourselves and be well.